there, welcome to the Information and Knowledge Management tutorial video. This session highlights the concept of knowledge management as well as the relationship between intellectual capital and knowledge assets. When people leave organizations today, they are potentially taking with them knowledge that is critical to the future of the business, whether it is a key client relationship, mastery of an outdated computer language, or simply knowledge about where certain files are saved on a company server. Every business has stored up bits of information and know-how that is not written in a manual or recorded in a training video. The organizational context has changed and now identifies the knowledge worker as a crucial employee within the organization. Knowledge workers are workers whose main capital is knowledge. Examples include software engineers, physicians, pharmacists, architects, engineers, scientists, public accountants, lawyers, and academics, whose job is to think for a living. A knowledge worker is an individual who uses knowledge in his head to come up with the innovative ideas as well as add knowledge to the organization to increase its survival chances. Knowledge is becoming an important corporate resource that must be captured, protected, preserved, and grown. The question here is, how do you do that? That brings us to the term knowledge management. Knowledge management focuses on the exploitation and development of the knowledge assets through capturing and disseminating the knowledge across the organization as a whole. Having the knowledge remain with the individual or small groups is not beneficial to the organization. Organizational knowledge is knowledge that is relevant to the organization. What people know about customers, suppliers, products, processes, cycles, legislations, mistakes, and successes, among other organizational activities. This can be described using the taxonomy of knowledge model. Know what is the clear understanding of the processes and procedures of the organization. This is the ability to recognize, describe, and classify concepts. Know-how is a clear understanding of how things are done in terms of the processes, procedures, and activities that need to be undertaken. It is the ability to follow a sequence accurately to perform an action. Know why is the synthesis of know what and know how by applying reasoning. It shows comprehension of a phenomenon and provides justification for the applicable solution. Knowledge can be classified into two distinct types: tacit and explicit knowledge. You may have experienced the long-time employee that seems to know how to fix the intricate piece of machinery in his sleep. He has been doing it for years, and he would tell you. All of the knowledge he retains in his mind is tacit knowledge. On the other hand, you may have dealt with an employee who seems to grab the operating manual every time he turns around. The manual is an example of explicit knowledge, that which is documented. Knowledge management involves transforming intangible, tacit knowledge, that is, information in people's heads, into explicit knowledge, that is, knowledge in a format that can be stored and shared with others. This graphic depicts the relationship between tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. While explicit knowledge is more easily visible, most knowledge is tacit knowledge. Knowledge management activities often involve capturing and organizing both explicit and tacit knowledge that organizations and programs generate, so has to be applied to maximize an organization's effectiveness and efficiency or to improve an aspect of a business system. One of the major challenges in knowledge management is how to extract tacit knowledge and make it explicit so that other members of the organization can benefit from it. For this reason, a model for knowledge creation known as the SECI model was developed. The SECI model is used to describe different conversions from tacit knowledge to explicit knowledge. Let's look at each stage. Socialization, tacit to tacit knowledge conversion. This is where individuals obtain knowledge from one another through joint activities such as dialogue or observation. It can also be described as simply adding more insights to the existing knowledge that an individual possesses. Externalization, tacit to explicit knowledge conversion. This is the articulation of an individual's tacit knowledge into a tangible form that can be easily understood by others in the organization. The forms may vary from text, visuals, concepts, or models. Externalization is a knowledge capturing process. Combination, explicit to explicit knowledge conversion. New knowledge may also be discovered by synthesizing various units of explicit knowledge. This usually forms more complex knowledge as it is an incremental process on the bodies of knowledge used. Internalization, explicit to tacit knowledge conversion. This is where explicit to tacit knowledge conversion takes place and has been equated to the traditional notion of learning by some scholars. The knowledge that has been acquired in this stage is classified according to relevance and preserved as a mental model. This knowledge can be put into practice. To understand the concept of knowledge management, think of knowledge as a resource, just like buildings, production equipment, product designs, and money. All these resources need to be systematically and actively managed. The diagram depicts the activities that go into successfully managing knowledge from acquiring it to applying it throughout the firm. It is not just knowledge related to the activities that is important to recognize. Let's examine each step. Knowledge acquisition. Knowledge comes from a variety of sources. Early attempts of gathering knowledge were from a hodgepodge of documents, reports, and employee input. Now companies are using more sophisticated technologies to gather information and knowledge from emails, transaction processing systems, and outside sources such as news reports and government statistical data. Knowledge storage. Remember, knowledge management is a continual process, not an event. As you gather knowledge, you must store it efficiently and effectively. Knowledge dissemination. Once you've built the system, acquired and stored the knowledge, you need to make it easy and efficient for employees to access this knowledge. Portals, wikis, social networks, information management, and email are just some of the tools you can use to disseminate information easily and cheaply. Knowledge application. You can have all the information and knowledge you need to master any task, but if you don't build knowledge application into every functional area and every system used throughout the organization, you are doing a disservice to both the knowledge and the company. Knowledge assets are the collective and accumulative intellectual resource of an organization. As such, the term is normally used interchangeably with intellectual capital. In contrast, knowledge assets are largely possessed in the workforce of the organization. With the emergence of the knowledge economy, it has become increasingly important for organizations to reconsider the value of their intangible assets. The value of the organization can no longer be viewed as the value of the assets that reflect on the traditional balance and value sheets. Intellectual capital may be defined as the economic value of two categories of intangible assets of a company. You have the organizational or structural capital and human capital. Structural capital are the tangible elements of the organization, such as your software, customer, supplier information, and systems that remain with the organization. It is the capabilities that an organization uses to meet market and societal requirements. Human capital is the knowledge that resides in the employees' minds. It refers to the expertise, the creativity, and the experiences of individuals that enable them to perform the designated function within the organization. There are various frameworks that have been developed for measuring and managing intellectual capital within an organization. These frameworks are used to attempt to understand the intangible value creation. As the old age implies, it is important to know and measure what you have so that you can be able to manage it. The following frameworks can be used: Balanced Scorecard, Skandia Navigator, the Value Platform, and Sullivan Intellectual Capital. Let's take a closer look at each one. The Balanced Scorecard was developed by Kaplan and Norton. Using a balanced scorecard method, many companies are combining the internal financial information with additional perspectives, such as customers, internal business processes, and learning and growth. By focusing on key performance indicators or KPIs in each of these areas, executives gain a better understanding of how the organization is doing. After senior management establishes KPIs for each area, then and only then can the flow of information be established. The Balanced Scorecard assists organizations to manage, change, implement strategy, and measure outcomes. It helps to translate strategic goals into relevant measures of the organizational performance, since it looks at various indicators to possibly establish cause and effect, relationships, and performance drivers. Skandia Navigator provides a collection of the critical areas that need to be understood and measured to determine if value creation is taking place. These focus areas are financial focus, a measurement of the organization's profitability and growth opportunities; customer focus, an indication of how well the organization fulfills the needs of the customers; human focus, a measure of employee satisfaction and knowledge creation; process focus, this measures the actual internal and external, those are your customers and suppliers, processes for efficiency; renewal and development focus, this helps to determine the sustainability of the business, its ability to create new products and improve service, and its capability for survival. The Value Platform framework was developed to show the interrelation amongst human capital, organizational capital, and customer capital. The developers of this framework believe in the following equation: intellectual capital equals human capital plus organizational capital plus customer capital. In the figure, the triangle that connects the circles shows these three intellectual capitals that need to be managed. At the core of the diagram, all the three different capitals intersect, and this shows that value is added when these three are unified. The three components, human, organizational, relational, or customer, can all create value. But it is only when they reinforce each other within the frame of the business recipe that substantial financial capital is created. Sullivan divides intellectual capital into human capital and intellectual assets. Human capital is tacit by nature and lies in people. He defines human capital as the capabilities of employees, contractors, suppliers, and other company-related people to solve customer problems. For Sullivan, human capital includes also relationships with other groups and subjects outside the company. Intellectual assets represent the codified, tangible knowledge owned by a company. This classification is fundamental for extracting value from intellectual capital and consequently for intellectual capital management, since human capital requires different management than intellectual assets. This classification is completely different from the previous ones because it defines structural capital as the support to human capital, and it also comprehends physical assets. There are various other frameworks to classify intellectual capital. I have only explained a few. Because knowledge management is correlated with competitive advantage, organizations need conceptual awareness about types of knowledge, current management thinking, and the value of knowledge for sustainable competitive advantage. Companies begin the knowledge management initiative when they establish their own definition and frame of reference for the specific types of knowledge they have and how to best combine that knowledge with the core competencies that make them successful in the economy. Organizations must take concerted steps to plan and implement knowledge management into their core competencies portfolio. Ultimately, whether an organization withers and dies or conversely sustains competitive advantage is directly linked with a strategic vision of knowledge management. Only when organizational culture supports and nurtures knowledge sharing will such organizations effectively sustain an advantage in its mission. Regardless of the point of the compendium in knowledge management that an organization resides, any effort in knowledge sharing practices and objectives will yield value in the sustainability of the organization beyond near-term survival. Hopefully you found this video tutorial informative. In the next session, we'll be discussing the impact of organization behavior on information and knowledge, as well as information and knowledge management systems for decision making. Till then, goodbye.